Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Nothing But Locks. I'm your host, Ali Melnicki, accompanied by my co-host, Robert Kowalski. How are you doing today, Robert?
Allie, doing great. Looking forward to this episode number 125. Could we be up to?
Yeah, and it's our third one while we are in Nashville. So excited to get started here.
Uh,
So quickly, before we get into the lines, why don't you give the audience a recap of what happened last week, some betting trends that happened in week two?
it's obvious that there's going to be an awful lot of adjustments being made, perhaps a little bit of, maybe overreactions. However, that being said, from a point spread perspective, Allie, favorites led 10-6 straight up in week number two, but the underdogs led 8-5 with three pushes against the spread. Road teams, well, they led 9 wins against 7 losses straight up and 7-6-3 against the spread. Overs, from a totals perspective, overs really dominated if you played those. 13-3 out of the 16 games, 13 went over on the young season. Favorites, 18-13 straight up with one pick 'em. That was Cincinnati Cleveland back in week one. But dogs, that's the way to go. They lead 17-11 and three pushes against the spread. Road teams, yeah, they're doing well too. 19-13 straight up and 19-10-3 against the spread. So small lead overs for the season, 17-15. But boy, oh boy, dogs everywhere, Allie.
And that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm a big underdog bettor. I love betting the underdogs. I was 8-8 with my picks last week. Wasn't my best week, but I'll always take a 500 week or better. But let's get right into it, Robert. And let's start with one of the games I think is going to be the most entertaining. Surprisingly, these two teams are both 0-2. I bet a lot of people would not have expected it, but that is the LA Chargers against the Minnesota Vikings. What are the odds for this one?
I had this game opened actually at pick. Really didn't want to have much of a lean, not knowing the status of Austin Eckler for the Chargers. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it right now, Allie, here at our platform on Zen Sports. Minnesota Vikings, now a 1.5-point favorite in the total 54.
So this is a game where I actually wasn't too surprised with the pick'em spread. Minnesota is a tough place to play for opposing teams. But Robert, if you look at this team, at this Chargers team, they're so much better than their record indicates. They're really one or two plays away from being a 2-0 squad. So when I look at Justin Herbert and whether or not Austin Eckler is 100%, I just see too much offense on this side of the ball. The Vikings have one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. They've struggled mightily the past few weeks. I'm all over the Chargers here. How about you?
Yeah, someone has to win this game, right? I mean, it could tie, but it's very unlikely. Both of them 0-2 on the very young season. And you're absolutely right, Allie. Chargers just absolutely loaded. Offensively, they have everything that they need from every position, including a brand new offensive coordinator, making things look even better. Defense definitely going to be an optional in Minnesota today. I think that the total is the one that's probably most in play because they really have things clicking, and I really, really like the way that the Minnesota Vikings have been playing. I expect them definitely to end up somewhere in the high 20s today. Really tough. I think this is going to be one of those games where we're going to have a victor at the very last drive of the game.
What does it say? Because obviously someone's losing this game. Who's in more trouble going 0-3, the Chargers or the Vikings?
Well, I guess if you're out on the West Coast and you're thinking, okay, is this really going to happen again? Are we going to have such a stacked franchise and yet we're not even going to make the playoffs? 0-3 is not a good way to start the season. And someone is looking at that. I don't know, maybe tough to say if Minnesota can get out of an 0-3 hole in their division, if things would be easier for them. I think that if the Chargers go 0-3, that's going to be worse for them, in my opinion, Allie. How about you?
No, I 100% agree. Especially you look at the AFC, I think it's far superior to the NFC. That's going to be a tough, not only division to win because they're competing against the Chiefs, but they might have real problems getting a wild card spot if they go 0-3. I think with Minnesota, even if they go 0-3, there's an outside shot of getting a wild card. It's pretty much a frenzy. I think the last two wild card spots last year were, forget if it was 9-7 and something like 9-7-1, something like that. But Yeah, I think the Chargers are in huge trouble and heads are going to roll. I think that if the Chargers go 0-3, Robert, do you think there's a possibility Brandon Staley does not appear in week 4?
We're gonna do
Seriously.
this. We're doing hot seat in week 2. Let's do it.
It's the overreaction week. That's why.
Staley, man, you are on a short leash right now on the Nothing But Logs podcast. Look, he's
I think
got
he should have been
obvious.
gone last year. So
He
yeah.
should have been gone. You said that actually last season. The fact that he's here, despite of not being the OC, still he's doing everything he can to make sure this thing clicks. Man, I'm really, really wondering now, could he possibly be the first to go if they go 0-3? That would be shocking. But hey, it's the NFL. You need results. Every week is like the last week of the season.
I know Chargers fans that have been, because obviously I'm in Los Angeles. I know Chargers fans that have been calling for his head since the mid-season last year. So I think that they would be happy to give Kellen Moore an interim position. But let's move on to the home team here. They're away this week. The Titans are taking on the Browns. Lots of injuries in this game, Robert. So why don't you, before we get into that, why don't you start with the odds here?
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to set this number here at Zen Sports very early. And so I was doing it actually Monday morning, well before the news of what happened to the Browns running back Nick Chubb. So we opened up the Browns 4.5 and the total 41.5. I don't think that Ford, as good as he is a talent, I don't think he has nearly the capabilities of Nick Chubb. That number definitely played into that, and it got all the way down to Cleveland Browns 3, with a little bit coming back right now. So Browns 3.5 here this morning, and the total 39.5.
This is one of the ones I've toyed with back and forth. I actually am 2-0 in my picks with both teams. I had picked the Browns to beat the Bengals week 1. I picked the Steelers on Monday night. And then the same thing with the Titans. I had picked them to cover the spread in the first 2 weeks. So I've been spot on both these teams. Going back and forth, Robert, it's an interesting number, 3.5. But I actually am going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with the Browns. I really don't have a good reason but to say it is Cleveland, and Ryan Tannehill just had a decent game, so he's probably due for a bad one coming up. But
Yeah.
that Browns defense is something that is very underrated, led by Myles Garrett. I think Tannehill's going to really struggle throwing the ball downfield. That secondary is pretty good as well. He's going to get a ton more pressure than he did last week against the Chargers. I've really been disappointed with the Chargers defense, but that's another note. So this is a tough one for me. I would have no confidence in betting it, but if I'm going to have to pick, because I do pick 'em, I would lay the points with the Browns. How about you?
For me, it would be on the total. I think that this one's going to absolutely be a ball control type of a game this morning. And honestly, that 39.5 really wouldn't be shocking to see it really start to drip down even lower. Actually, with the way both offenses are set, Tannehill sure is probably going to be comfortable handing the ball off 20, 25 times to Henry, if not more. And they're probably the same for the Browns. And actually, what's going on with Deshaun Watson? Is he good? Seriously,
definitely a shell of his former self. I was one that I knew he wasn't going to be that good last year when he came back.
Yeah,
it's so much football, but you have a whole off season that he was practicing with the Browns,
and that's true.
Like he should have shaken it off, but I think this is the decline of Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's older than most people think, Robert. He's been in this league a long time. And I think that absence where he sat out for a year, then he had all the legal trouble, so he was suspended. I really think that played a part in just, you lose your rhythm, you lose your coordination, you lose your timing. I don't think he's ever gotten that back.
No, you're absolutely right. He hasn't, in my opinion. I mean, what we saw in Houston versus what we have today, night and day. I think that there's going to be more struggles with Cleveland than they know. They sure invested a ton to get him, but he sure was really, really comfortable throwing to. I honestly think it was just a Cooper pretty much the whole day.
Right.
It really wasn't much else going on back on Monday. So that total for me is the one that I circled more than anything here with Tennessee and Cleveland. I think the game goes under the total with an awful lot of ball control from the rushing attack on Tennessee's part.
All right. Well, that's great analysis. I'm siding with the Browns, but I do agree with you on the under. That's something to definitely look at. Both of these teams struggle to score on a regular basis. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when Robert and I come back, we have more games to highlight. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Nothing But Locks. We just got done covering the first two marquee games with the Chargers, Vikings, Titans, and Browns. And now let's get to the Monday night games, Robert. And I want to start with the Rams and the Bengals because there's a lot of questions surrounding Joe Burrow. So right now, what are the odds and what does it look like? Is he playing or what?
And of course, we still have 24 hours to go before we definitely know for certain, but sure does look like Burrow wasn't up to par. I don't think he's got a 100% lower body. And this goes back to preseason, to that, first opening week of preseason. And I just don't think that he has all the push necessary to see exactly, what he's capable of. So because of that, this game opened up very high, meaning Cincinnati 6 got bet way down to 2. And now, as we're watching more and more practices, here we are Sunday morning. It looked like he's pretty sharp again. Bengals now 3, Allie, in the total 44.
So this is one I don't want to touch until I know for certain whether or not Joe Burrow is playing. But I will say he doesn't look 100% at all.
Nope.
My fantasy team will tell you that. So I think they keep him out of this game. But Robert, I have to look this up right now. Who's their backup quarterback for the Bengals?
Yeah, it's not going to be the best of it. And as I'm just rifling through, it's just so many different playbooks that I have to do. Forget about the pros. It's, the college with I'm kind of jumping gears here, but with college football, it's like I have to watch who's on the roster every single week because of the transfer portal. In this instance,
Jake Browning.
It's Jake Browning and
Washington quarterback.
Yeah, we don't really want to see him in a uniform. Definitely not if you're a Bengals fan. Look, we're talking about the Chargers in Minnesota, both of them looking at 0-2. One of them is going to be 0-3. Bengals 0-3? Could it possibly be? We didn't see this coming at all, Allie.
So if Burrow plays, even if he's not 100%, I would still back the Bengals because the Rams defense is atrocious. And I think that, he would have a much better opportunity to connect with Chase and Higgins and Boyd. I think Mixon will create some room there. So that's no problem for me. However, if Jake Browning starts, and I saw him play a few games for the Giants when we were pretty much in Joe Judge purgatory for a couple years, he was not good. He was not, and I really liked him when he was at Washington as a college quarterback, but he hasn't shown me anything that he's capable of stepping in and making some big plays. And in that case, I would side with the Rams. So if Burrow plays, even on an unhealthy Burrow, I'll take the Bengals. And if Browning plays, even if he's 100%, which it looks like he is, I'm going to go with the Rams. How about you?
Circle this game absolutely this Sunday morning, because if 43.5s are out there and we know that Burrow's not playing, that number's going to drop precipitously. Matter of fact, I actually think that there's a chance that the Rams even sneak out a possible win. I think, and by the way, Allie, just to call back on your Joe Judge, your big blue was showing there again. For our listeners.
I don't mind admitting I'm a New York Giants fan.
Right. If we don't know by now, then you definitely know by now. Rams have sort of found a couple of new offensive weapons in Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams has really looked good, so good that Akers isn't even a Ram anymore. That's how much they trust him. And at 1-1, I think that they're playing with house money already in week number 3. No Burrow, definitely Rams. With Burrow, probably to the under of that total, because I just don't think he's going to have the proper footing. That's the way I'm going to stand right now, at least for the next 24 hours.
All right. What about the next game? That's Monday, Eagles and Bucks. What are we looking at for the odds here?
Yeah, so exactly. We've got an Eagles team, both of them 2-0. We opened this up, the Eagles 6.5. That was absolutely its ceiling as it got bet down to 5.5. And now our current number Sunday, Philly Eagles 5 and the total 46.
I was one of the few that people said I was insane when I said don't sleep on the Bucks this year to win the NFC South. Robert, they're 2-0 right now.
They're 2-0. Yes,
And
they are.
they look decent. Baker Mayfield looks efficient with that offense. The defense looks good. I have no problems taking points with the Bucks. And in fact, and this is not me being biased because I'm a Giants fan, I don't think the Eagles have looked that good this year. I think the defense has. But if you look at the game against the Patriots, they struggled to move the ball. The reason that they took such a big lead early on was thanks to the defense because they had a pick six and I believe another turnover. Same thing with the Vikings last week. If Jefferson doesn't fumble that ball into the
Yes.
end zone right before halftime, that's a totally different game. That's a total game changer. And I know they did end up getting the backdoor cover, the Vikings, but I just think this Eagles team isn't the same without their two coordinators from last year. So it's not going to be like last year where the Eagles just seem to pile on the offense and ram them down. They really haven't. Just Jalen Hurts hasn't looked as sharp. He has a couple turnovers to start the year. I think he's almost like he's on pace to definitely double or triple his turnover ratio from last year. So I'm 100%. This is probably my favorite bet of the weekend. I'm 100% on the Bucks to cover here. How about you?
Yeah, I can't fault you there as much as I want to. With the differential for Tampa, they're a plus 13 with their 2-0 record. By the way, no world's happening. This is the upside down world with the NFC South. Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa are all 2-0. This doesn't make sense at all. If you want to talk about a surprise, no real surprises in the NFC East, of course, with Dallas, Philly, Washington 2-0. But here we are. I mean, you're right. If we're looking at point differential for the Eagles, they're only plus 11. They're not blowing anyone out. These games are close games for, lack of a better term. And with them being on the road, look, of course, we all would love to have an opening number of 6.5, but that's not what this show is about. The number's 5 right now. Who knows what's going to happen come, late Monday. But I honestly think that number is definitely palatable to grab right now. Tampa at home, 2-0, catching 5. Definitely something I'd rather do than laying it.
Well, who's your pick right now to win the NFC South? Have you changed your mind at all?
No, 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 no. I'm not going to change my mind. I really, really think that I was very impressed with Atlanta after the draft. I was more impressed with them despite what everyone thought was the capabilities of Desmond Ridder. I still choose Atlanta to win the NFC South.
I'm going to stick with the Bucks, but I do still think the Saints are a little overrated. They've had some lucky wins in the past 2 weeks. So I'm still not
That's
backing all
true.
the way. I don't think Derek Carr could win the big games. One or two plays could have went against them and they could easily be 0-2 right now. So I'm going to stick with the Bucks to win here. But what does that say though, Robert? What if the Bucks pull off the upset? I think it's going to be close. I think it's a field goal game. I wouldn't be that bold to take the Bucks on the money line, but do the Eagles need to panic? What do you think? I know it would just be one fluke loss on the year, but this is a trend that they just haven't looked as good as last year. What's your impression on that?
They haven't. That's true. They really haven't. And I'm wondering if everyone's just sharpening up to their really, really complex scheme of offense. It's just something that just finds itself out. And the better staffs, the better coaching staffs are the ones that figure out and are able to adjust it. I mean, look, so far they're 2-0, we really can't fault them for being perfect thus far. But you're right. Don't seem to be like the same squad from last season.
No. And again, I just don't think Hurts has looked as sharp. He hasn't made a connection with AJ Brown like all season. Yes, they've made passes, but you haven't seen like a blowout game from either of the wide receivers. I mean, Dallas Goedert, the tight end, didn't even catch a pass week 1. So it just seems like their defense is still on pace. They seem to be carrying them. But yeah, that's something I think you need to look forward to because a 2-0 record doesn't say everything about a team. I mean, look at like you just mentioned Washington. Washington's 2-0, but they beat Arizona, who's clearly tanking for Caleb Williams. And they beat a really bad Denver Broncos team who everyone thought Sean Payton would come and save them, but it doesn't look that way this far. So I always say, Robert, you can't really judge a team until after 4 weeks. You need four solid weeks of play to see what a team's true colors are, where they definitely are going to need to improve by the trade deadline. What do you think about that?
You're absolutely right. I mean, look, they've already won at New England. They hosted Minnesota, put up 34 on them. It wasn't really as close as the numbers finally seems. This is a big one. You're absolutely right. At Tampa is going to be a big one. And then, of course, the 4th week is going to be a game against Washington. who are right now they're 2-0 as well. However, very, very difficult schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles all year long. If we see them 4-0 after 4 weeks, they definitely are championship caliber.
You think they're better than the 49ers?
No, I do not.
I was
No,
gonna
we'll
say
touch on that. No. I don't think that they're better than the 49ers. However, just an asterisk, the Niners aren't that much better. Meaning they're in the same ballpark. I just find them one small ladder step below San Francisco.
it's
Small.
interesting because you look at, DeMarco Ryan, he gets hired as the Houston Texans head coach, and it just looks like the San Francisco defense just did not miss a beat. And then you look at the Eagles offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator left. Yes, maybe the defense still looks good, but it looks like the offense is still struggling a little bit. So we'll see how it all plays out in the next couple of weeks. But I love the Bucks to cover. This is probably my lock if I were to pick a lock. So you could hold me to it if I'm wrong next week. Anyway. All right, we're going to take another short break. And when we come back, Robert and I have two more big games that we are going to dissect. And then we are going to get into our rapid fire round, everyone. So stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Nothing But Locks. And let's get right into it, Robert. This is one that doesn't seem like a big game, but I'm actually interested in the matchup because I said all preseason, and off season, everyone was riding the Bears, that they were Justin Fields was the second coming. The Bears are capable of winning 12 games. What are they now? They're 0-2, and Justin Fields has looked like he regressed in any form whatsoever. And now they got to take on the Chiefs. Before I get into more of that, Robert, why don't you tell the audience what the current odds are looking like for now?
Yeah, this one had to come double digits, and no pushback from the betting public on Zen Sports. Kansas City opened to 13, got bet down just a little bit for a little while, down to 12.5. But for the better part, we're at 13 with a total 48.5, Allie.
I hate laying that many points. And again, I would not touch this game to bet. But if I have to hold my nose and make a pick, I will take the double-digit points with the underdog right there. There's something about Kansas City. They just don't seem to blow people out. This dates back to last season. So if I can grab double-digit points, I'm going to do it most of the time because there's always that case for a backdoor cover. There's a chance that now with the new offensive look that they'll run Justin Fields more than have him pocket pass. Robert, when Justin Fields goes to throw, he looks lost. Like not even confused. He just looks lost. How do you explain how he's been playing this year in your opinion?
It's not helpful at all, Allie, that the guy's, first off, he's getting just murdered on social media all week. He didn't look too good on practice. Obviously, he's trying to pin blame, but it looks like things got cleared up between him and his staff. Allie, no one's been sacked more than him in his career since he started. Not only that, now it's going to be very questionable if we're going to see Darnell Mooney for him. It just goes from bad to worse. So he's not getting any help from the offensive line as much as they tried to fix that in the offseason. It's not helping. So he's not having any time to go through his progressions at all. It just sucks. I don't know if it's going to be any better. Kansas City at home is never an easy feat for anyone, much less the Chicago Bears. This one definitely looks double-digit loss early on, and I really haven't changed my opinion much over what's going to happen a couple hours from now.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily see Kansas City winning 31-10. I could see, like I said, a backdoor cover where they come in and get like a late touchdown or something. Kansas City starts pulling some of their starters. But Robert, when I look at Justin Fields, it's kind of like I compare him almost to the Daniel Jones situation too. The Bears went out and they got him Chase Claypool. They got him DJ Moore. They got him the offensive tools he needs. And he's just even when he has time in the pocket, Robert, he holds the ball just way too long. And that was a criticism of him dating back to his college days. So if we still see this regression, is there a chance that the Bears are going to regret trading that number one pick they could have used on a CJ Stroud, a Bryce Young, or an Anthony Richardson? What do you think?
Yeah, they have regrets already.
That's true.
I honestly think you're right. They brought in the weapons from side and in the slot for him, but again, I really think that they probably should have spent more attention to protecting him, or rather than giving him some more weapons. I'd rather take the shield than the sword here. It's going to be tough. And look, for all intents and purposes, I really don't see Chicago winning this game later today.
No
And
way.
he's
No way.
it's just gonna be tough because he's gonna get beat up. He's probably gonna have just as Justin Fields, of course. He's gonna probably have a far better performance than his last. But because they're going to lose, I just really don't think that the amount of punishment he's going to get and the amount of fans that are going to ask for a change in everything is just not fair, I think.
No, what give me a number. What would you put for the over under of how many times he's going to get sacked in this game?
I say 2.5, Allie. What's yours?
I'm taking the over in that. I would have put it at 3.5. I think with Chris Jones, he's gonna see the dirt a lot today.
Nice little middle there. All right, everyone circle that. Let's see how we come back with that next week.
But I mean, the Bears, they invested in Justin Fields. And I said in the offseason, he had a few great fantasy football games toward the end of the year when defenses just kind of let him run around because, hey, why not? He can't throw. And he had a few great runs out of it that seemed to turn people's heads, but never did he show last year that I thought he could be a competent pocket passer. And it seems like trading for Claypool and trading for DJ Moore, they kind of thought that they would transition him into a pocket passer. They should have put more resources, like you said, into bolstering up that offensive line if they wanted to use his strengths. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you absolutely have to commit, right? If you all have decided that the future of Chicago is to have Justin Fields, this is the absolute right way to go, then do it. Don't half-ass it. Exactly what you see is what you're going to get. So plan the offense around them. Quarterbacks is everything in this league, everything. And if you're going to go with a mobile quarterback that he's shown his abilities in college, then stick with it. If you don't like it and you don't like what you see this year, and by the way, I've said this in past episodes, if you don't like what you see with Justin Fields, just cut ties. It's okay. Move on. Find your next quarterback and go. Because if you don't have your quarterback, then just keep drafting one in round one because you got to get it right. You have to have that quarterback.
Are they going to trade up in the draft and get another UNC quarterback with Drake May coming out?
Gonna have to.
Mitch Trubisky must be another one. Another quarterback they traded up for and totally whiffed with.
Did.
So they did. Anyway, let's move on to the last game we want to highlight before our rapid fire round, Robert. And I thought this is an interesting game. Patriots and Jets. What do we have for the odds here?
So look, this one is definitely one that I didn't think the spread was going to be like this in the preseason. However, New England opened up 2, moved up to 2.5, and finally hit the ceiling at 3 before finally settling here Sunday at 2.5. The total very low, 36.
Can we just say Zach Wilson is bad? Like, he's not mediocre. He's just bad. And his attitude is even worse than his play on the field. I don't even know how he's still on this team, other than they thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be the starter for 2 years and Zach Wilson is on a rookie contract. But did you see him in the fourth quarter, Robert, against the Cowboys? Like that was atrocious last week. 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter. There is nothing that could compel me to take the Jets going up against Bill Belichick and the Patriots, who actually have looked decent, even though that they haven't had a win yet this year. They almost beat Philly. They almost beat Miami. Those are 2, I would say, at least top 7 teams in the league that they held close. I think this number is way too small. I would have had the Patriots as 4 or 5-point favorites. So I'm 100% back in the Patriots here. How about you?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of a 3-point spread at all here. I actually think that New England is undervalued. Their defense is really, really good this year. And look, Garrett Wilson or no Garrett Wilson, I think that the Patriots definitely have the game plan set to win in New York. And this one exactly is the way it's going to play itself out. I think we're going to see an awful lot of the Patriots offense. Look, they're a very capable bunch. I know they didn't get wins in their first 2 games of the season, but the Jets really looked unraveled against Dallas late. You're absolutely right. Like you nailed it there in the very end. I don't see much of a drop off from the Patriots defense to Dallas's. As a matter of fact, I think the Patriots defense might be right on par.
Yeah, they're an underrated unit. Yeah,
very, very. And I actually think that they're going to pick up the Patriots, pick up the win today. If they pick up the win, they probably pick up the cover as well.
So what do you do if you're the Jets, Robert? Because I know Aaron Rodgers says he wants to come back. I don't see him playing another down in the NFL. You invested 2 years in this guy. You basically said this is going to be our future. We're in a win now mode. You signed half of Green Bay's offense to play with him. Where do you go with the Jets? Do you just do it with Zach Wilson and see what you get? Do you try to sign like a Carson Wentz? What do you think?
No, you're absolutely right. This is incredible because and I just said it last week. The Jets are just so cursed. This was it. This was the run. This was the run to the Super Bowl and raising the trophy. And they're not even thinking about look, anyone you ask right now, go ahead and flip a coin. How many people are actually saying they don't even make the playoffs? It doesn't even seem
I
likely.
said that before anyone else said that.
Wait a second. You said that with Aaron Rodgers even.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, it doesn't matter the injuries during the season. It matters what the final number is. So that prediction, I think you're going to owe me another bottle of wine for. So I'm just building up these wine bottles that you owe me, Robert. It's building up in my favor, I would say.
It's horrible. No, you're right. But just to emphasize the final point, Jets must decide right now if they're in or if they're out. You're going to disappoint a ton of people from top to bottom in that entire organization if you decide, you know what, let's just do the Zach Wilson experiment one more time, because it's going to end up very, very badly.
It's funny. One of my good friends is a Chargers fan, and she always goes to a different stadium every year. So she wanted to go to MetLife for the Monday night game for the Chargers and the Jets. And she literally texted me while we were in Nashville at dinner when Aaron Rodgers went down. Why didn't I wait to buy my tickets? So you can tell that ticket prices have significantly decreased since Aaron Rodgers is no longer in the building. But real quick for our next break, do you see Aaron Rodgers coming back? I don't. Do you?
At his age and with the injury that he suffered, I really don't see him coming back. He has to say he's coming back for the optics, but it seems unlikely that we're going to see anything resembling a top caliber quarterback out of Aaron Rodgers ever again.
So for the Jets' future GMs, never trade for a Packers quarterback. It doesn't seem to work for you guys.
It doesn't.
All right, we're going to take one more break, and then Robert and I are going to come back with our rapid fire round. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Nothing But Locks. Robert and I are going to waste no time getting into the rapid fire round. We have a lot more games to cover. I believe 9 more to go through. We have only a few minutes left, so let's get right into it, Robert. Falcons, Lions, what do we got here?
This game is definitely going to be defense optional, in my opinion. Lions right now, 3-46.
Do we know, is Amon-Ra playing?
I'd say yes. Yeah, turf toes are horrible. I think at home, definitely looked good during practice this morning. I have a feeling that he's going to come 100%.
So I think the Lions win this one, but I'll take the points with the Falcons. The Falcons have impressed me. I didn't think that they would be as good on defense as they are. They've looked very good on defense. Jesse Bates was a big signing for them. Bijan Robinson just looks phenomenal. Actually, their only weak spot is Desmond Ridder. If they have another quarterback in, I would have changed my pick and gone with you that they win the NFC South. But in this one, I'm going to take the Lions to win, but I'll take Atlanta with the points to cover. How about you?
I do like the 3 points as well. I think that if Detroit gets a little too sleepy and concentrate too much on, like you said, Algier and Robinson, look out, because it could be Ridder that's the one sneaking up the middle for 12 yards, completing the drive and moving it forward. So efficiency in this game, those that control the ball. And I really feel Atlanta's going to do a very good job of that to keep it inside of 3.
All right. What about the Saints and Packers? What do we got here?
So this one, as opposed to the others, we've got this one far, far tighter. Opening them up at pick, Packers right now this morning, only a 1-point favorite, the total 42.5.
I said the Saints are overrated. I'm going to go with the Packers 100% here. I don't have too much to say about this, but I'm 100% back in the Packers. I'm not a Derek Carr fan. I really think the Saints have gotten lucky with their first 2 wins. I think the Packers are a better team. I wouldn't say a far superior team, but I think they can run more efficiently. So I'm going with the Packers. How about you, Robert?
Yeah, especially with them playing at home. It's a different look when the Saints go out on the road, especially outside of a dome. Green Bay, as young a team as they are, they sure have looked very, very good in their first 2 games. I think they put it together and pick up a win today as well.
All right. What about the Jaguars and the Texans, Robert? What do we got here?
The Jaguars opened up almost double digits, 9.5 points hosting Houston. This one's down to 8. And actually, with the total moving on down as well, total's only 44, Allie.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And I would take the under in this game, but I really like the Texans to cover. I know that they haven't covered the first 2 weeks, and I picked them both weeks to cover, but I do like them in this situation. They seem to have the Jaguars number. They always seem to play them hard. CJ Stroud has actually impressed me a lot. I think I was one that I said before the draft, I would have drafted him over Bryce Young. I just liked what I saw out of him better when he was at Ohio State than when Bryce Young was at Alabama. So I think this kid has a real future in this league. I think he's improving every game. I think the Texans give the Jaguars a run for their money and cover this one, Robert. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely great. Great point there, because I do think Jacksonville picks up the win here and move on to 2-1, but it's going to be very difficult for them to blow out Houston, especially with the game plan that Houston has. They'll scratch and they'll claw, but I don't think they'll pick up the victory. It should be enough, though, to stay inside of double digits.
All right, here we go. The next one, Robert, the Broncos and the Dolphins. What do we got here?
So, of course, this is one game that everyone is expecting just a ton of fireworks. It may happen after all. The points come very, very easily from Miami, no matter who they play. This one, 6.5 point favorites at home, hosting the 0-2 Denver Broncos.
I mean, it's so tough not to side with Miami and how they played lately in that offense, especially going into a Denver Broncos squad that just has looked awful. But I don't know, Robert. There's something about this game that's making me like the underdog and just to take the points. I'm sure I wouldn't blame anyone for laying the points with the Dolphins, but there's just something here that Sean Payton might have lit a fire in the locker room or something after going 0-2. And I think they come out a little more motivated in Miami and cover the spread here. How about you?
I joked with a friend of mine that if Denver doesn't win that game at home last week, this was going to be the end of their whole entire season. Yes, I did that in week 2, but I'm actually saying it right now. This doesn't look good. If they go 0-3 after this game with Miami this morning, it's going to be really, really tough to come back home to Denver and start talking about what to do next. 6.5, though, definitely is one that I would want to take the points rather than lay. So in my instance here, you're absolutely right. I think that Denver does keep it close inside of the 6.5.
I mean, real quick, what do you do with Russell Wilson if you're 0-3? He's just been a disaster since coming here.
You just eat it. You have to. There's no way out of this. They, especially with Sean Payton coming in and putting in a brand new scheme around Russ Wilson. You cannot go away from him no matter what at this point.
Yep, I agree with you right there. All right, Bills and Commanders. What are we looking at here?
After a high number of 7.5, Buffalo right now this morning, only 6. The total's 43.
So I like Buffalo. I love actually Buffalo in this situation right here. I think Washington's overrated. They're another team easily, I think, could be 0-2. They beat 2 very bad teams with the Broncos that we just talked about. And obviously the Cardinals, who are showing, even though they gave the Giants a run for their money, they're definitely tanking for Caleb Williams in the draft. So I think the Bills, they got a wake-up call, which they needed week 1 of the season when they lost to the Jets. They looked great against the Raiders last week. I'm going to lay the points with Buffalo. How about you, Robert?
We finally have a game here in the rapid fire round that I go opposite you no matter what.
Wow.
Love Washington here. I think that they definitely stay within the 6.5 points at home. We've seen a really renewed running attack, especially between Gibson and Brian Robinson Jr. They are really, really clicking very well together right now. That coupled with perhaps a bad leg on Micah Hyde, a bad foot on Leonard Floyd, I think that they're going to have a handful dealing with Washington offensively. Look, am I saying Buffalo's going to lose this game? No, not quite, but they're going to need to come up and put up 30 to cover that number, and I just don't think they're going to.
All right, what about the Colts and Ravens?
This one, after all week long, taking a look at the status of if we're going to get Anthony Robinson playing for Indianapolis, has finally settled to a position where the Ravens now an 8-point favorite at home hosting the Colts. The total's 44.
I think this is just way too many points. I actually have been impressed with the Colts and what they've done without Jonathan Taylor, what they've done with Anthony Richardson. Even if Gardner Minshew steps in for Richardson, I still think that this Colts team plays the Baltimore Ravens very, very well. I think that it'll be a close game. I know the Ravens are 2-0, but they beat a banged up Joe Burrow and in the Bengals. They beat the Houston Texans, which, as much as I think they're improving, they're still far behind everyone else in the league, minus the Cardinals. I'm going to take the points here with the Colts, Robert. I just don't think the Ravens are as good as their record is. I'm not saying they're not a playoff team. I think they do make the playoffs, but I'm going to take the Colts with the points. How about you?
Yeah, I think you make a great point there. It's an awful lot. I know Baltimore's 2-0, but look, Colts can still score, whether it's Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew. I think the 8's a good number to grab, and that's probably my position there as well, staying inside of double digits.
All right, Panthers, Seahawks. What's next here?
Seahawks here, a 6.5-point favorite, the hosts to the Carolina Panthers. Totals 42 right now on Zen Sports.
Oh, I love the Panthers here. I know that they haven't looked great. Bryce Young has really struggled, but I also think that the Seahawks are very still overrated. I think what we saw with the Seahawks in week 1 against the Rams is what you get. I know that they did beat the Lions in overtime last week. There were a few questionable calls. I think that could have went the other way. And the Lions lost quite a bit of their players throughout the game, or else I think that they do win the game. So I think the Panthers win this game outright. How about you, Robert?
That one's tough. Oh my God. Okay. I will. All right, I'm siding with you on the points. I don't think they win. It's way too difficult to win in Seattle, especially with a very young squad in Carolina right now, still trying to figure out who they really are at 0-2 this very young season. 6.5, I think, is actually a very good number. If anything, it's that 42 that just kept jumping out at me. I think that number definitely goes under the total because might not see the light of 20 or more for Carolina, and that's going to be a big difference right there.
All right. What about Cowboys and Cardinals? This game could get messy, Robert. What do we got?
It's going to be messy because it started messy and it's not going to get any better. The Cowboys 13 already. The total's 43.
Again, I hate laying points, especially double-digit points. This is one I went back and forth with, but I think, Robert, there's a chance that Dallas overlooks this game. I think that they pulled their starters early. Yes, I know they beat the Giants 40-0, but I will say that Josh Dobbs and the Cardinals have shown grit. I think that they will find a way to fight back, and I'm going to call a backdoor cover. And the Cardinals, they still lose by double digits, but they cover the 13. How about you?
That's a very good point, right? I thought about it and watched Dobbs and the Cardinals literally collapse, giving the Giants one of the largest comebacks in history. Look, it's completely night and day when you're playing Dallas, even if you are hosting Dallas, but that's an awful lot of points. I really wish it was 14. It's not. It's 13, and it's probably even shorter now as we get closer to game time. I think that this still stays inside of double digits. You're absolutely right. It does start to let up right around the late third, when Dallas finally realizes, hey, you know what? We have enough here. Let's give it a rest. So probably staying inside of double digits makes sense here as well.
All right, last one, Robert. We got the Steelers and the Raiders. I know it's your favorite team. What's the odds here?
This one really flipped on its side because of lots of things involved in the number. We opened this one up. The Steelers 1.5. It went to pick about 24 hours into the week. And now here we are staring at the Raiders 2.5, almost closing as high as a field goal here late this evening. And the total now 43.
I love the Raiders here. One of my things I like betting is I love betting against the winner of the Monday Night Football team. I just think you got to play on a short week. It's a tough turnaround. I think I really like what the Raiders have done. I know they lost pretty bad to the Bills last week, but they looked good against the Broncos. I've always been a Jimmy Garoppolo fan. I think he can manage the game well. So I'm going to go with the Raiders. How about you?
Yeah, I'm siding with you here to end the show. You're absolutely right. Devontae Adams looked like he had a concussion scare, but he's going to be fine tonight. And I really think the difference between the Raiders' offensive scheme and what Pittsburgh had to put up with Cleveland, definitely two different ones. And I think that Vegas gets the upper hand here. They get the win in the cover.
All right. Well, that's all we got for today. I hope everyone enjoys their football Sunday. Thank you again for joining us. And before we sign off, Robert, any last thoughts or advice for the audience?
Yeah, again, thanks so much for joining us the last hour. It was an awful lot of fun going over it. You can find all of these lines and spreads along with a ton of propositions on all the games we just talked about right at zensports.com.
All right, everyone. Definitely check out the Zen Sports app. Hope you have a great day. Take care.